guys, welcome back. This is going to be part 4 of the Plymouth Scamp. We're going to do some guide coating and block sanding today. We're going to use some dry guide coat. Just a powder. Goes on the bottom of this pad. You just rub it on the car. And we're going to use 180 grit on a 18-inch block. Okay, that should be good for this panel. I'll just block for a little bit, show you guys how it works, and then I'll stop for a little bit and I'll do it off camera, and then I'll come back and show you guys how it's looking. So basically you want to go on an angle, you don't want to go straight. If you go straight, you're going to give yourself ripples like that. So you want to kind of go on an angle, and you don't want to push real hard either. Kind of let it glide over the surface, and it's going to show you right away what's high and what's low. And it's a pretty quick process. It doesn't take a ton of time to do. Right along the body line, I'm going straight, just to make the line look straight. It's just kind of a boring process. It just takes a little bit of time. It's not hard, like I said. It goes fairly quick. I'm actually going to open this door up. Tape off there, so that I can just come right to the edge here. So you can see anywhere it's still a little low, you can see a little bit of darkness here and there. So we'll go back over it. Now this process is going to make or break your paint job as far as it looking flat. If you don't do this and you just run over it with a DA, it's going to be ripply all down the car. No matter what you do, you're going to have spots like this everywhere because the DA is just too small. The mud buster, when I put the mud on, it's a big 8-inch pad, and that's a little different. As you can tell, the mud buster sands the mud pretty darn flat because there's not a ton of low spots here. and that's why I coated the whole car. A couple people had mentioned, like, why didn't you strip the car down to bare metal? First off, the last paint job, somebody had stripped the car down to bare metal. There was only one paint job on this car with some filler primer and a little bit of body work underneath it. Second, this is a $10,000 to $15,000 car. For me to strip this down to bare metal, put a $10,000 paint job on it, fix the rest of the interior, there's some rust on the underbody, you're gonna have more in the car than the car's worth. So you gotta kind of pick your battles with stuff like this. This, we're just trying to make a nice car that is fairly straight and just looks good driving around, something you don't have to worry about, something that's not perfect, it's not a show car or anything like that. So that's why I am showing this process and doing it the way I'm doing it, to just show you what you can do with a little bit of your labor and about $800 out of your pocket. What you can accomplish if you have the means to do it, as far as, you know, a place to do the work at. Some of the tools, you don't need a ton of expensive tools or anything like that. You can do all your body work with these too, you know. I'm just trying to do it in a faster pace, so that's why I used a bunch of air tools to put the mud on the car. So I'm gonna go ahead and sand for a couple more minutes, and I'm gonna stop the video, and then I'll sand down the rest of this quarter panel, and then we'll see what it looks like, and then we'll come back and we'll mess with the door for a little bit. So let me just knock down these couple low spots. We got one right here, right in the body line here. Got one right there and there and there. And we got a little bit of a pinhole right there, which isn't even a full pinhole. And that's almost gone, that little pinhole. Just an imperfection in the bodywork. You can see right here that I'm breaking through to the old paint job underneath. So if I would have stripped this to bare metal and did all the body work and everything, if I had stripped it to bare metal, I would have had to epoxy primer the car, because the bare metal would have been showing. So we would have had to epoxy primer it and then scuff it, then do body work. So it's just a lot more work and labor and money in materials for a car that's not worth it. So that's why I'm doing this the way I am. And the old paint job was not falling off or anything like that. It had one spot on the roof that had peeled from something. But other than that, everything else was good. You can see here how we have low spots all in this area and one right there. Mud starting to show there. Okay, I'm going to continue on. This actually looks really good up here. That's why I want to put a little bit more filler primer though, because if you don't filler prime this again and you have a bunch of spots where mud's hanging out, when you put epoxy sealer on the car before you paint it, sometimes this will show through, and then it takes a little bit longer to cover it. And then especially on metallic paint jobs, you can get some imperfections looking spots because of the Bondo showing through. So I'm going to put 2 more coats of light primer on this car after it's all blocked down, and then I'll block it down one more time real quickly with 180, and then I'll hit it with 320 on a block sander. On this sanding, I will not be using anything higher grit than 180 because I want it to still be coarse enough for more filler primer to stick to it well. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of this panel sanded down, put some guide coat on the door, and then I'll show you the quarter panel, and then we'll sand the door for a few minutes. Okay, all in all, I'm real happy with this quarter panel. I still have to straighten out that wheel lip. I haven't messed with that yet. I only found one dent, which is right here. So we have one dent there. Everything else looks nice and flat. Obviously you can see where I had to sand a little bit more to flatten stuff out, but it worked out pretty well so far. Okay, now I want to use a round block and sand the top edge of this quarter panel here. So let's see how this works out here. Just gonna kind of go as much of an angle as you can, which is not much because there's not much room to work. But take your round block here, 180 grit, same thing. Just try to work it back and forth. In the very center there, I'm going to have to kind of go straight back and forth with it just to get down into the middle. Because right now you can see that's a low spot right here. Right here we have a definite low spot. Keep cutting that down and it's almost gone. A little bit more. Right there's a little bit. All this is coming through from the old paint job. So there was definitely an imperfection there before. And then right here, there's a little bit more where there was an imperfection. So this was definitely messed up looking before, but now it'll be a lot better looking. And then back here, just keep the same thing going. Just kind of work your way around this where the sail panel mates into your quarter panel. Kind of keep working it around. And right here you can use the flat block once you get to about here on this car. Right here you can definitely see a pretty good low spot right there. So I'm going to work on that and see if I can't get that out without having to do some more filler to it. It's almost gone. You can see there's just a little bit left right there. So try to see if I can't get it the rest of the way out. Even if I break into the paint a little bit, that's okay, because as long as I don't hit bare metal, I'm fine. So the old paint job in a way kind of acts like an extra filler primary. You know, if I start hitting bare metal, then I definitely have a high spot. You know, if I start hitting it on each side of this low spot. You can see where I put some Bondo here and here. Now, I'm not going to sand this whole car down today. I'm going to probably do the door, fender, or maybe the trunk lid area. And then tomorrow I'll finish sanding it and get it ready for primer. Because once we re-primer it, then we can sand it down one more time, and then we're ready for paint. And we'll paint the door jambs first, and inside the trunk first, and then the body. You can see we're getting real close to getting that out of there. I wonder if I can get in there with this one now. There you go. So I was able to get rid of that without having to apply more filler right there, because this filler here was high, so it was causing my sanding block to glide from here to here and it was keeping it up off the ground, off the body, because this Bondo right here that I put on was a little high. So now we're straightened out and it feels real good now. So I'm gonna go ahead, finish the rest of the top of this, and then we will do the door. Okay, I got the top all sanded down. I hit a little bit of bare metal right there. That's a hair high. I'm not gonna mess with it because you can barely feel it. And I don't wanna go hitting that down lightly with the hammer and then having to put a little filler on it. We're gonna leave that as is. Because I think once I do another primering, it's probably gonna be all right. Like, once again, we're not building a show car here. I'm actually doing more block sanding and work than I really should be doing on it. But gives you guys a good idea of how to do it then, at least one of the ways of doing it. I'm not saying that my way is perfect or exactly right, but it's just how I do it. Now if you want to put a $10,000 paint job on your car, let's say this car was in your family its whole life and it's only a $10,000-$15,000 car, but it's something near and dear to your heart and you want to keep it for the rest of your life, go for it. If you want to do that. Me personally, I have no attachment to the car, so clearly I'm not going to put a ton of money into it. It'd be a different story if it was something that was passed down from my family or something like that. So I'm not saying don't do it, and I'm not saying don't strip your car down to bare metal. Clearly the best way to do it is to strip it down to bare metal and start fresh, but you have to take all that in consideration, how much time you want to spend. Your time is worth money, you know what I mean? 90% of a paint job on a car is labor. You might have $2,000-$3,000 in material for a really good paint job, but you're going to have $12,000 to $15,000 in labor. So almost all your car paint job is labor, really, if you think about it, not that much in materials. So let's block this door for a little bit. We'll see how it looks, and then I'll do the fender next. I see I have some pinholes here in my bodywork, quite a few actually, but we'll get those afterwards. Still using the same piece of paper from the quarter panel. You only want to do a panel or two with a piece of paper, or maybe even just one panel with a piece of paper. The sharper you keep your sandpaper, the quicker it's going to go for you. The flatter it's going to cut. The straighter it's going to cut quicker because you have a sharp piece of sandpaper. So now, just by me going over this really quickly, like this, that guide coat just shows everything. Look at that. You can just see all this is imperfections. If I would have took my DA sander and just went over it real quick, you'd see that in the paint job, you'd see this in the paint job, all this stuff you'd see in the paint job. All these big spots you would see in the paint job, because the DA sander is just going to kind of glide over it. It's not going to cut it flat, so it's going to keep showing it. I can actually feel a little indentation right there. Now, yeah, you can feel it pretty good actually. So hopefully I can block that out, because what that is in the mud work. When I spread the mud on the door, I probably had stopped here, or I don't know, maybe my Bondo spreader nicked it a little bit. You never know. Or my sander went a little crooked on me, and that's probably what it is from the sander. But let's see if we can sand that out, because you'd be amazed at what you can get out with 3 coats of primer. If you put 4 or 5 coats of primer, you can pretty much get almost everything out of it. Yeah, I'm gonna have to change this sandpaper pretty soon here. It's getting pretty dull. And try not to stay concentrated in this area for too long. If it's not coming out, move on, come back to it. Because if you just sit here and just keep digging at it, you're just gonna make a bigger crater. Worse than that is now. I'm just using one hander over here because how I have to stand to kind of sand this. You can see it's coming out. Let's go over here now. And the reason why I'm using one hand at the edge here is because this door is in a little bit from the fender. So my block is actually hitting the side of the fender. So I'm just using one hand right here to just kind of cut this edge down. Ideally, you'd want your panel to be pretty much as flush as you can with the next one, but we're not getting into all that on this car. And I try not to go this way if I don't have to, because then that just creates a line right here. You'll have a line right there that you'll see. You can get a smaller block too if you need to. This sandpaper is at the end of its life. Let me go change it. Okay, that's gone. So basically what happened is this was high here. This is high here. But now it's all flush. See what a new piece of sandpaper does, how quick it just starts cutting through everything. That's actually the old flame colors showing through there. But when you run your hand down this thing, it's perfectly smooth feeling. Now, if you don't feel it very well, I learned from an old guy, old body guy, you could take a tissue paper and put a sheet of it on your hand and then rub that on the car. I never really had any luck with that. Some people say they could feel it better. I don't notice a difference, but you could try that, you know. So I'm gonna go ahead and sand down the rest of this door, and then we'll come back and see how it looks. Okay, the door sanded down. That took me 20 to 25 minutes because it was a little rougher than the quarter panel. You could definitely see where I had to go through quite a few spots in a few areas there to really get it to flatten out. But it's flat. I didn't hit any bare metal or anything like that, so we're doing real good here. So now I put some guide coat on the fender. I'm gonna go ahead and get that sanded down, then I'll come back and show you what that one looks like. Okay, passenger side of the car is all sanded down, fender sanded down real good. Down here towards the bottom, there was a little bit of a ding, but there was enough material in the car to get 99% of it out. I think the next primering will take care of the rest of it. So basically, this side only has one ding that needs fixed, which is behind this marker light right there. Other than that, I'm extremely happy with this side. Putting that light coat of mud on the whole car definitely made a huge difference on time saved by going this far. So now I put some guide coat on the trunk lid. I'm going to do the trunk lid and then I'm calling it a night with this. My arms are tired. If I was doing this for a job for somebody, I would block this whole car down in one day. I would start early in the morning. I'd probably have it done by noon, 1 o'clock. But since it's not any certain rush or urgency, I'm going to do half of it today, and then tomorrow I'm going to do the driver's side, quarter panel, door, fender, and then I'll do the roof. And then it'll be ready for one more light primering, 2 coats of primer, which I won't show that part. I'll just basically, once this video is over today, tomorrow I'll just do a quick update videos, just showing the progress and getting it ready for primer and stuff like that. I'll show it after it's sprayed and a few things like that, because I'm not going to keep videoing me primering and block sanding the car. That would be pointless. Obviously, it's the same method for each time. So I'm going to go ahead and do the trunk lid, then I'll come back, show you how that turned out, and then I will call this video done. Let me show you block sanding the trunk lid for a couple minutes, because you have a lot more freedom with the trunk lid because it's a nice big flat panel. I did put a new piece of sandpaper on here, so this is my 3rd strip of sandpaper, and that did, so 3 pieces did the whole side of the car, and it'll do the trunk lid and maybe part of maybe the sail panel or something like that. So just keep kind of crisscrossing each direction. This is way easier to deal with. You don't have a ton of body lines. There is a faint body line down the center of the car. Keep that in mind. You see how much quicker these go because it's just a nice big flat panel. Now another thing, if you guys have the ability to do all the body work and stuff, but you're worried about spraying your own car, if you get it all completely ready, painted, sanded down, ready for paint, primered, all the body work done, sanded down, ready for paint, and you take it somewhere, it's going to be, I'll bet you can find a body shop to paint your car for $1,500 to $2,000 labor materials. And you know, that's a big thing you don't have to worry about then, you know, painting your car, getting a bunch of dirt in it and stuff like that. No, they're not going to wet sand and buff it for that price. You're probably looking at another $500 to $1,000 to have them wet sand and buff it. But if you have the ability and the time to spend to get it to the point of where it needs to be painted, or even if they have to take it and do one more primering and block sanding down, you're going to save so much money. It's just crazy. So let me get this sanded down and then I'll show you the hood or the trunk lid. Okay, trunk lid blocked out really good as well. So it looks nice and flat. A couple spots I went through. All right, so that's gonna pretty much end this video. Now another thing I always recommend is, if you're going to, I've been leaving this car outside, paper's falling off, I have to repaper some spots. But now that I've sanded this much down, I'm not going to leave it outside. I'm going to put it inside because I don't want any moisture to get into the Bondo or anything like that. Now, this is a urethane primer, so when it's sprayed, you know, when it's like this, not sanded down, it could sit outside. It's not going to get hurt. It's not going to hurt anything. But once you open it up like this and you start sanding it, I would definitely put it inside. Now, if you can't put it inside and you only sand a couple panels down a day, put them in primer. You know, before the end of the day, get them in primer so that it has a protective coating over it. But since I'm going to put this inside, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to worry about moisture or anything getting into it. So, all right, guys, that's going to end part 4. Tomorrow, I'll just do a brief video of the passenger side or the driver's side once it's sanded down and the roof. And then I'll do another video after it's primered and stuff like that. And then one last video before we get ready to paint the door jambs and stuff. Now the door jambs and trunk lid, I'm gonna have to paint these outside because my spray booth is not wide enough to paint a car with the doors all the way open. Usually I paint cars in pieces. This car is getting painted in one piece minus the hood. The hood's coming off because it's a disaster. Look at this. And usually I don't sandblast hoods, but I'm gonna have no choice on this one but to sandblast that rust off of there. And then there's a big hole cut in the center of the hood, so we're gonna have to try to glue this on with some panel bonding adhesive, 3M panel bonding adhesive, and then fiberglass it back in. I don't recommend doing that. I don't think that the fiberglass sticks well to the metal, but in this instance, I don't really have a choice because if you look in there, somebody cut a big hole in the hood underneath there. It's either that or it gets a new hood, and this is the cheaper route. So we are going to just glue it with panel bonding adhesive and fiberglass it down. So, all right, guys, that's going to be the end of part 4. If you guys are liking what you're seeing, please like, subscribe. Any questions and comments, feel free to ask. Other than that, I will see you guys later.